as your podcast grows and as the opportunities of your podcast grows, it's super important to keep it simple because we can really overcomplicate things and things get rolling so fast that you never take a step back and say, hey, what is working? What isn't working? What am I doing just because I've always done it? And what do I need to start doing that I haven't started doing yet? Podcast Growth Nation, today for episode number 197, the 5 square matrix for every podcast task you have. Podcasting is just like anything else. You are essentially starting something with the knowledge that you have. The longer you stay in it, the more knowledge you get, but usually you pick up more tasks as you go because you start to realize which tasks are important. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is each task is a passenger on your train, and you just forget about certain passengers, and you just keep running the train the same way you always have. And I think we're all guilty of that to some degree, not just in podcasting, in everything, in fitness, in our jobs, in our friendships, in our relationships. You just do the same thing you've always been doing because you forget what it was like to make that thing the new thing. At one point, everything you were doing right now was the new thing. So I think we forget about that. So today the goal is, by the end of this episode, to have 5 simple check marks you can make and 5 simple decisions you can make for every task that you have. And if you continue running this framework, hopefully it'll free up some time from the stuff that really isn't moving the needle so you can pour back into the time or to the tasks that are moving the needle. Okay, cool. All right, number 1. So there's going to be 5 things, okay? 5 things, 5 labels, then we'll dive into them. 1, eliminate. These are the things that you started doing, and they either, if this is a hard one, because either it did not create the level of results that you wanted based on you doing it for a long enough amount of time. If you just started something and you did it for 2 weeks and it didn't work, it's probably not necessarily time to eliminate it yet. But eliminate is get rid of this stuff that just isn't working. Get rid of it. If it's not moving the needle, and we don't think it's going to move the needle, and we're not going to strategize further on how to make it move the needle, just get rid of it. It's time to eliminate it. Fast food restaurants do this all the time. They have an underperforming menu item. They just eliminate it. It's gone. I didn't know this, but I think at one point McDonald's did pizzas. No, doesn't work. Gone. Right? This happens pretty often. So eliminate is just get rid of dead weight that just isn't serving you. Now, this is the hard part about this conversation. I don't know how long you should run the thing before you determine it's time to eliminate it. I don't know. That is on a case-by-case basis, and it depends on a lot of different factors. I don't have an answer to that. But 1 is eliminate. So the thing is not serving the purpose. We got to get rid of it. For us, what did we eliminate? We've eliminated so many things. We had an entire department that was based on going out and getting speeches. And we never really put a ton of time in it. We had somebody running the department, but they were running a bunch of other departments, and it was always last. We would skip the meetings. We didn't care. But it was just, we always did it. We always had our speeches business unit. We always had it. We recently just let it go. We eliminated it. If you want us to speak and you reach out, awesome. But we're not going to go out of our way searching for speeches. Alan and I, we both work from home. We do everything virtually. I don't really want to be traveling all over the place to speak anyway. Now, if the crowd is right and it's aligned and the fee is right, awesome. Yes, I'm not going to say no to really aligned opportunities, but I also am not going to spend a lot of time investing in that opportunity, right? I'm not going to go out searching for it. That's something that we eliminated. We just got rid of it. Doesn't make sense. It's hard to get rid of stuff. This is a really common thing. It's really hard to get rid of stuff. But if you're doing 10 things mediocre, I would rather you do 5 things really well, 3 things really well. But if you can do 5, awesome. But most of us can't do 10 things really well, especially on our own. If you don't have a team yet, it's really hard to do 10 things really well on your own. So 1, eliminate. Get rid of the thing. There's a lot of biases when it comes to this. The sunk cost fallacy is something worth looking up. Essentially, the more you invest in something, the harder it is to let it go. So if you've spent 5 years doing something, you're going to say, well, I've already spent 5 years. I should just keep going. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying yes. But just understand that our brain does play tricks on us when it comes to stuff like this because you are invested, right? You have sunk a cost of time, a cost of energy, a cost of money into this thing. It seems like it's worth keeping, even though it might not. So that's eliminate. Get rid of it. 2, automate. Automate, I think when people hear automate, they just think like AI. And that isn't necessarily the case. Automate is have something that runs automatically. Automate, automatic, right? An email sequence. You can do that. Really simple automation. Really simple. If you have a Facebook group, when people join the Facebook group, there's questions that they have to answer, and then you get sent the answers. That's it. That's an automation. Another automation in a Facebook group is every time the group grows by X amount of people, it automatically sends a welcome message to the new members. Automation. Easy, right? I think what happens is we start, and then we automate a bunch of stuff, and then we never re-automate. Honestly, this is something we're not super focused on. For whatever reason, there are things that we have automated, but we do a lot of the stuff ourselves because we want to know. It's easier to measure growth when you measure everything personally, right? So like as an example, I have Rocket Money for my personal finances. So every single thing my wife and I purchase gets automated through Rocket Money, and it creates a log and it shows where it's all going. But I also still track our finances every day by hand. So yeah, it's automated, but I want to do it too. So I'm not saying you have to do that, but automation is after somebody fills out an email to be on your show, or they fill out the form to be on your show, they get an email, right? That. If something happens, then something happens as a direct result without any of your effort, essentially. So automate. So right now we're eliminating stuff that doesn't work. We're automating stuff that we're going to do repeatedly, and it doesn't make sense for us to do it every time, right? So automate, cool. Delegate. Pay someone or have AI do it for you. So ChatGPT, in a way, is delegation. Kind of, sort of. Opus Clips is kind of delegation. It still requires your time, but you're delegating a certain portion of it. Delegation really is somebody else having responsibility over a task and an outcome, right? So if I reach out to our team, I say, hey, this is the task. This is the desired outcome. I'm delegating it to you. It is your responsibility now. That is essential delegation, but we don't all start there because usually delegation requires money. And in the beginning of the journey of podcasting, we don't necessarily have the extra money. But there's other ways to delegate, right? With various AI channels and stuff like that, AI platforms. So eliminate stuff that isn't working, automate stuff that we're going to do repeatedly, delegate stuff that either you hate doing, you are not good at, it is the bottleneck, whatever that piece is for you. And most importantly, what you can afford. Yes, I'm a podcast coach and I have a production company. Not everybody should pay for that stuff. It can get expensive, and if you're not making money yet, it's the whole chicken or egg conversation we had a few weeks ago. So eliminate stuff that isn't working. Automate stuff that is going to be repeated, that we can find a way to make easier. Delegate stuff that we shouldn't be doing, we're not good at, we hate doing, it's bottlenecking us, right? It is stopping us from growing. Procrastinate. I recently procrastinated going on other podcasts. So I have not been on I went on a client podcast recently, but we had this whole system going where Alan's virtual executive assistant was sending X amount of messages per day. And then I had somebody on my end sending X amount of messages per day for me to go on a line podcast that we believed in. We procrastinated that. We pushed it off. I said, in the new year, I'll do it. And then it was in February, I'll do it. Then it was in March, I'll do it. Now it's April 1st, and now that system is running again. So procrastination is often considered negative by people, and it can be if it's the most important task. I procrastinated something that was not the most important thing. For me, serving existing clients is way more important than going out and getting exposure. That is the way it works. I believe client delivery is the most important thing. I don't care if you can get 1,000 clients. If you can't deliver on 1,000 clients, the system is broken. So procrastinate could be, I need a new website build. It's not going to happen this month. It's not going to happen next month. All right, I'm going to procrastinate it until Q4. Or I'm going to procrastinate going on other shows. Or I'm going to procrastinate ordering new equipment, whatever it is. Because just because you decide not to do it right now does not mean you've decided not to do it ever. And it doesn't mean you're going to lose, and it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means maybe right now is not the right time. We're going to buy new cameras and new mics. We're procrastinating. It's just not that big of a deal. I have a nice mic. I have a nice camera. It's not the end of the world, right? It's not the end of the world. But there are certain things that are time-based that we can't procrastinate. We have a live event coming up. We have Next Level Podcast Accelerator starting in a couple weeks. Those things we can't procrastinate. Those things are the things that we really have to focus on. So at this point, eliminate stuff that isn't working, automate stuff that's going to be repeatedly done, delegate stuff that you are not good at, you do not like, it's bottlenecking you, procrastinate stuff that just isn't that important right now. Now, you got to keep a list of this stuff. If you have great ideas, keep a list. I have a list, Google Tasks, a bunch of ideas, right? A bunch of thoughts, a bunch of ideas. So I can check in on that. Now, here's where things start to compound. You eliminate something, it goes away. You automate something and or delegate it, and then you realize, okay, I need to check in on that thing, but I'm going to procrastinate that until later. And you can see how things start to compound, okay? Last one, double down. These are the things that are moving the needle that you want to get really good at, that you're good at, that you know is helping you make progress. When you eliminate something, that time does not go to hanging out, it goes to double down. When you automate something, that time does not go to golf in my case, it goes to double down. When you delegate something, you are delegating so you can double down. And when you procrastinate, you are procrastinating so you can double down on the most important task. And this is the number one thing. If you've never heard of Pareto principle, just Google it, Pareto principle. And essentially, this principle states that 20% of effort creates 80% of results. So there is an activity that, for me, I'm dieting right now. The 20% of activity is tracking calories. That is the 20% of activity that gets me 80% of results. If I stop doing that, everything would go off the rails. So I have to double down on that as the journey gets harder. Podcasting for most of us is going to be the 20%, a piece of the 20% that gets us 80% of the results. If I didn't have any podcasts, you wouldn't be listening to this one. This is the 20% that gives me 80% of results. So it's important to understand that. And if you think about, even if you were to categorize it as would like to have, need to have, couldn't go without, you could do the same thing. Right? It wouldn't be the same buckets necessarily, but like to have, email list. Need to have, podcast. Would die without. Well, I guess would die without would be podcast, but you get the picture. There's different buckets for different things. And we just have to categorize things and prioritize things in the right way. Because there are some people that are doing stuff, they're doubling down on stuff that just doesn't matter that much. It just doesn't matter. It's if every day you're posting about a guest that had a positive experience on your show, but you're not doing social media, you might be doubling down on the wrong thing. Because guests are not going to move the needle on monetizing your show, most likely, depending on how you're doing it. So at this stage, we have eliminated the stuff that's not working. That's part one. We've automated repeatable systems that we're going to be doing often. Think email sequences, think guest forms, Facebook groups in general, that type of thing. We've delegated things that we suck at, that we shouldn't get good at, that we hate, that are literally holding us back. We've procrastinated things that are important, but it's not the right time. Procrastination is the stuff that's not supposed to be eliminated. It's just supposed to be automated, delegated, or doubled down, or accomplished at a later time. And then double down. And I think this is really where a lot of people get stuck. It's like, what are the things that move the needle? What are the things that everything else would stop without? That. If Starbucks didn't have coffee, if they stopped serving coffee, everything would go. It would just die. They need to double down on their coffee. Like that's kind of the way it goes. I'm trying to think of like sports. If the NFL didn't have talented players, nobody would watch. So they have to double down on making sure they get talented players. It's different for them because they're essentially a monopoly, and that's a whole different conversation. But there's one thing that leads to most outcomes with almost all of us. If you are married or if you're in a relationship, there is one thing you do, and there's one thing that moves the needle more than anything when it comes to your partner. And if you know that, you can double down on that. And I guarantee that will improve your relationship and vice versa. Right? There's probably one place you could save a boatload of money. If you double down there, you'd probably be able to save a boatload of money or make a boatload of money. So doubling down on stuff is so important, but it's just a matter of finding that thing. And then really having the courage to do the other steps. People don't like to eliminate stuff. People don't like to get rid of stuff. Understandable. Automating stuff, it's a pain in the ass to start for sure. I mean, it can be a pain to set up the system, but it pays forever. It saves you time forever. Delegate, I understand what it's like to let go of the reins of certain things. Not every experience is going to be a great one, but it doesn't mean delegation is a bad thing. I've had bad experiences with delegation for sure. I've delegated a lot over the last 9 years, and I've had some bad experiences, but I've also had some world-class experiences. And if I didn't delegate, I wouldn't be able to do this, right? So that's an important step. Procrastinate, it feels like you're committing a cardinal sin when it comes to growing and business and content creation and prioritization. But I think the really high level people know when to say, it's not time for this right now. It's just not time yet. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book on podcasting. It's just not time, right? I keep procrastinating. It's just not the most valuable use of my time right now. Eventually it will be. And when it is, I'll have to eliminate, automate, delegate other things, and then double down on that. And that is the cycle forever. The hardest part maybe about this whole thing is only you see the behind the scenes of what feels like lack of progress. Nobody else sees this. They don't know you eliminated or automated or delegated. They have no idea unless you eliminate something that they're a part of. But that's pretty rare, all things considered. And people forget. People have lives. They have stuff going on. They're not going to remember necessarily that you eliminated something like that. Most people aren't going to remember that. But this really is the key. And then you have to check in on this. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's once a quarter. That's totally up to you. But I'm always thinking about, what can I delegate? I'm always thinking about, what can I procrastinate? I'm also thinking, what have I procrastinated that it might be time to bring back? But we have to check on this stuff because to the point of making a list, if you just make a list and then you never check the list, none of this is ever going to get done. And I literally have on my peak performance tracker that I look at every day, did I delegate more? Like that is one of my things. That is one of my measurements. Did I delegate more? Because for me, lack of delegation bottlenecks growth because there's only so much I can do. Right? We have a lot of clients. I need to delegate almost everything outside of certain things because I shouldn't be doing them because we have a team that's way better than I am. That's the point. That is the point. But that takes time and it takes trust and it takes experience to do that. But it's scary. It's scary. Eliminate stuff that seems almost invisible currently. Automate stuff that can't really break and it's not client and or guest facing. It's not public facing. Delegate things that don't matter if they go wrong. Procrastinate things, you'll know what to procrastinate. And then double down on what's moving the needle. And start very, very small. I'm not saying to eliminate anything massive. I'm not saying to go all in on anything without proof that it's worth it. This is something that comes over time. In the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing with this. Not a clue. Now, it's way easier because you don't get as attached to things. You don't get as attached because you understand that everything is a trade-off, right? The 20, 25 minutes I'm going to spend with you today, I can't do anything else with that time. So understanding that this is the most valuable use of my time right now helps me understand and feel good about all the other decisions that I'm making. But we all have to practice that. And if you really want to grow and you really want to scale, I'm telling you, this is where a lot of people get stuck. I'm not saying you can't edit your own show and be successful. Nope, not saying that. I'm not saying you can't get your own guests and be successful. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is this system in general is something we all need to practice because there are a large amount of tasks you can invest your time in. As a podcaster, as a content creator, as a business owner, there's a million different places you can go. And if you're not constantly checking in on those things and what's moving the needle, you might just end up doing what you've always done. And what you've always done is not going to get you where you want to get to. What you've done has got you up to here. And it's not necessarily going to get you to the next level you want to get to, right? So that's my challenge. My challenge to everybody out there is sit down and just write out on a piece of paper 5 columns: eliminate, automate, delegate, procrastinate, double down, and see what comes up. 1, you might realize you're doing a lot more than you thought. 2, you might realize you're doing a lot less than you thought. 3, you might realize that there are certain things that are really moving the needle that you didn't understand, and vice versa. There are certain things you've just been told to do that just really aren't doing anything. Does it mean it's time to get rid of them? That would be another one I'd probably add, pivot. So eliminate, automate, delegate, procrastinate, double down, pivot would probably be one. Before you eliminate something, ask yourself whether or not it's worth pivoting. And if it is, try it and then run the same system. We've pivoted a lot of things before we eliminated them. So maybe that's an extra one. Maybe that's the 6th one. Bonus. But I find it's very easy to just pivot forever and never eliminate. So you got to be careful with that. It depends on how much what your risk tolerance is, what your commitment level to things is, how connected you get. I'm not somebody who is super connected to activities. Like if it's working, awesome. If not, I'm happy to move on. It doesn't affect me that much. But again, it's been a long time of this, right? There are certain things that I thought we would be doing forever that we don't do anymore. And I've probably forgotten about those. And there are certain things that I probably didn't think we'd be doing for long that we're still doing. So you have to be flexible. I do think pivoting is important. All right, cool. All right, sit down, write out your 5-column list. And if you want to chat about it, I'm happy to go through it with you and give you a second pair of eyes. So I'll have my link below in the show notes for free 30-minute podcast breakthrough session. We can spend it on this. We can spend it on anything. Whatever it is that you think would be valuable, I am happy to jam with you on. And I'm always a message away, an email away, a WhatsApp message away, whatever. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to give you as much value as I can. This is my favorite thing in the world. So anything I can do to add value, I'm always there to do. I hope you actually sit down and do this when you finish this episode today. Take action, right? Take action. Listening to it is one thing. Implementing it is something completely different. So I challenge you all to do that. As always, until next week, keep on crushing it, keep on podcasting, and I will talk to you all then.